Father's Day has a way of making a man look at what he built: the cards, the messages, the breakfast, the children moving through a life he made possible. And for a moment, it works. He feels it. I provided. I delivered. I did what men are supposed to do. But provision has a dangerous side. A man can build a life so impressive that he starts using it to hide from the man living inside it. That is the provider trap. The life you provide cannot become the excuse for the standard you stop living. Father's Day will always celebrate what you gave them. This episode is about what they are watching you become. And if Father's Day is the day you hide behind being appreciated because you cannot stand being examined, good. This is exactly the man this episode is here to disturb. Because I'm not here to question whether you love your family. I'm not here to question whether you work hard. I'm not here to question whether you have sacrificed. I am here to question the version of you that keeps using sacrifice as cover. The version that says, I've given them everything. I'm tired. I'll sort myself out after this season. They don't care what I look like. I'm still a good father. Maybe. But good father and intact man are not the same title. This is where we're going. Not into whether you provided, into what your provision has allowed you to avoid. And I'm going to say here for a while, because this is not, I'm going to say here for a while, he, not because this is about another man, because sometimes a man can only see the truth when his ego thinks it belongs to someone else. So watch him, then notice where it starts sounding familiar. There says iron suits where strength wears a crown. I am Marwan Kilu. It is early, before anyone is awake. The house is still. He moves through it the way a man moves through something he is proud of. Slowly, not consciously, just the way you move through something you built. He passes a kitchen. Their school bags are by the door, already packed. His wife did that. She does that. A kind of quiet organization that runs the whole operation while he is the one who gets called driven. He fills a glass of water, stands at the island, looks around, the appliances, the space, the framed photograph on the shelf, somewhere warm, all of them laughing. He booked that. He paid for it. He sat in that chair and looked exactly like a man who had built exactly this. Everything in this room is evidence. Everything in this room says he delivered. And then he turns, and a dark window above the sink gives him back. Not the man in the photograph, not exactly. Somewhere between who he was in that frame and who is standing here now, something shifted. He can't tell you when. He just knows he is wearing a different version of himself. and the window doesn't lie. If you came here expecting someone to celebrate your provision, stop. This is not that episode. And if you think this is about questioning whether you are a good father, it is not. This is the question underneath Father's Day, underneath a provision, underneath a life you built. The question nobody in your house will ask you because they rely on you too much to risk it. There is a trap at the center of everything I'm going to say today. I call it the provision trap. The life you provide cannot become the excuse for the standard you stop living. That is the law. The house, the schools, the holidays, the car in the drive, everything you have made possible cannot become the reason you stop applying it to yourself, the same standards you apply to everything else. That is what happens. Not all at once, not because you stopped caring, because you started providing. And somewhere in that process, providing became the answer to everything, to every private question you used to ask yourself. He walks to the window. The garden is grey-green in the early light. The table outside, the one they use in the summer, is folded against the fence. He put that out last year. It was a good day. Everyone was outside. The kids were loud. He sat in the sun and felt briefly like a man at the top of something. He wants that feeling again. He tells himself this is just a season. Work has been heavy. It is always heavy. But he has been saying season for longer than a season. He knows this. He's the only one in the house who knows exactly how long the counter has been running. Let me say the thing directly. You stop holding yourself to the standards, not the family standards, not the business standards, your own private standards. The one that used to exist before the life got big enough to hide inside. And now, on the weekend before Father's Day, you are standing in a house that proves you delivered and quietly wondering why that is not enough. Because provision is not the same as wholeness. And you have always known the difference. I've given them everything. Yes, you have. And I'm not going to dismiss what that cost. The decisions made alone. The pressure carried without ceremony. The version of stress that doesn't make it into any conversation because you are the one who is supposed to be steady. You have given them everything. That's not the argument. The argument is, at one point, did giving them everything become the reason to stop giving yourself the standard? At what point did provision become permission? Because that's the switch. This is the quiet one. This is the moment when the man who used to demand something of himself started using his output as a reason he didn't have to. You delivered. Nobody's disputing it. But delivery is not the same as discipline. And you know the difference. You know it every morning you pass that reflection and keep walking. He gets dressed. Good shirt. Always a good shirt. He buttons it, looks down, adjusts slightly, not dramatically. Nobody would notice from the outside. Just a small private adjustment that a man makes when his shirt no longer sits the way it's used to. When the provision of himself he pictures is not quite the version he's dressing. His wife comes into the room. She looks at him. She smiles, the kind of smile that has warmth in it, and also memory. She remembers the other version. She does not need to say anything. That is what makes it worse. She remembers the version who moved differently, the version who did not have to adjust before he left the room. She loves you, and she knows. He knows. He always knows. I'm just tired. You are. This is not a lie. But here's a question underneath the tiredness. When did tired become a permanent address? Because tired used to be a season. It used to come and go. Heavy, then lighter, demanding, then releasing. It had movement. Now it is the answer to every private question. Why aren't you moving like you used to? Tired. Why aren't you holding the standard? Tired. At some point, tired stopped being a description of a season and started becoming the reason the season never ends. And there's a word for tired that runs longer than a season. It is not tired. It is permission. His son comes downstairs, still half asleep, finds him in the kitchen, pours cereal without speaking. They stand in the same room in silence. He looks at his son, moving like a boy who is about to stop being one. Fast, long limbs. That particular energy of someone who hasn't learned yet to talk himself out of moving. He watches him eat. And he thinks, not consciously, not as a formal thought, what's he watching? Not what am I providing? What is he watching? When he sees you negotiate with yourself, what is the learning? What is he learning? When he sees you adjust before the photograph, what is he learning? When he sees you choose the chair on a Sunday when you used to be the one who moved, he's not judging you. He's not going to say a word. He's just watching. The way sons watch quietly without knowing yet what it means. And that's enough. I'm still a good father. Yes. And this episode is not saying otherwise. Nobody in that house is questioning it. But good father and intact man are not the same title. A man can be a good father and still be modeling surrender. He can fund the schools, book the holidays, be present at the table, and still beneath all of it, be demonstrating something his children are quietly absorbing. The standards apply to everything except yourself. That discipline is something you require of others. That the body, the energy, the follow through, those are negotiable. Nobody taught that lesson. It was lived every day in quiet. They don't care what I look like. Correct. Your body is not the point. It was never the point. The point is what your body represents. It is the most visible evidence of whether a man still holds himself to his own standard. Not a number, not a size, the relationship. The relationship between the man who demands discipline from his business, his team, his employees, and the standards he applies in private when no one is holding him to it. Your body is not a vanity project. It is the most honest thing in the room. It doesn't lie. It doesn't perform. It simply shows what you have been choosing slowly, quietly, in all the moments when you have chosen differently and nobody would have seen. Your children see it. Your wife sees it. You see it. And the question is not what it looks like. The question is what you are teaching when they watch you be comfortable inside the drift. I'll sort it after this. After what? Name the thing. Say it out loud in your own head right now. After this quarter, after this deal, after this hire, after the summer, after the kids are settled, after things calm down, after has been running as long as the drift has. They arrive together. They are the same thing. After is a story a successful man tells himself because he is too disciplined in every other area to admit he is not disciplined in this one. You're not weak. This is not weakness. This is not a weakness argument. Like Calendar did not choose this. You did. The standard slipped because you let it slip. Not because you were overwhelmed. Not because the season was impossible. Because at some level, the private level, the level below the performance, you decided the life you provided was evidence enough that you did not need to keep demanding of yourself. Provider became the identity. Standard became the casualty. The house is proof you provided. It is not proof you are intact. And that distinction, one between provider and intact man, is the conversation Father's Day never actually starts. It starts the one about whether you showed up, whether you remembered the birthdays, whether you put down the phone, whether you were present at the table. And those things matter. They are real. But there is a layer below all of it. The layer that is only between you and yourself. The private standards, the promise you made before sunrise when nobody is watching, and the only person holding you to them is the man in the reflection you keep passing. This is the layer that is moving. That is the layer your son is studying. Not consciously, not as a lesson, just the way a son studies everything, quietly, completely. Here is what is true. You build a life The life is real. Everything in that house is evidence of something that cost you something. You do not owe it to anyone to minimize what you built. And the man who built it deserves more than the version that has been running on fumes and good furniture. The version of you that built the life, the version with standards, with private discipline, with the relationship between intention and follow through that made everything in that house possible. That version is still available. He did not leave. He just stopped being required. And when a standard stops being required, it does not disappear. It drifts in exactly the way yours has. Father's Day is not asking whether you provide it. You provide it. Father's Day is asking what man lives in the life you built. Not who funded it. Not who made it possible. Who lives in it. Who shows up when there's nothing to prove. No one to perform for. No external pressure demanding a standard. Who are you in the silence before the house wakes up? Who are you when the reflection gives you back and nobody is watching? That is the question. It is not asking you to be different. It is asking you to be honest. And if the honest answer is uncomfortable, good. You built the life. Now what man lives in it? Not the provider, not the success story, the man who decides before Father's Day, not on it, that the life he built deserves a standard to match it. That is the work. If this landed, send it to another man who is hiding inside everything he has built. He knows it too. He just hasn't decided yet. Make sure you subscribe to the show. Follow me on my socials. The provider trap doesn't announce itself. It just quietly becomes the operating system.